And in the first month, I think we did close to 350K worth of sales with zero marketing.
So today we've got Sam Wood, who's an entrepreneur with a career spanning over 10 years within the retail industry. In 2017, Sam actually launched Azura Consulting, now Azura Fashion Group, bringing together his interest in fashion and retail, as well as his experience in e-commerce, trade and marketing, which are all good things, Sam, to create a business that would showcase and support the diversity of the global fashion industry. His vision was to create a single portal offering independent brands and retailers the opportunity to compete with the leaders of fashion e-commerce, which is phenomenal. So then enter Azura Runway, a fashion marketplace that in 2019 Sam Wood came up with, and he had this new idea that merged fashion with data, which is exciting. A place where designers and distributors of fashion have a chance to tap into the online sales channels and marketplaces all around the world. Sam thought that if he could bring together under one roof the most desirable brands and distributors of the world, this would immediately make available an unrivaled range to global fashionistas, which is an amazing vision. So welcome, Sam.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Cool. So let's dive right in. Can you give us a rundown on you and your business, and where things are at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, we started Azura Fashion Group 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
It has evolved significantly since then. We started off when we've met with distributors and wholesalers that would buy products in bulk, and then they would look to on-sell them through wholesale channels, but they would always be left with extra stock at the end as well. So they had no way of moving individual pieces, and a lot of these pieces were either heavily discounted or last season stock. They had no real outlet to kind of sell these. So we created Azura Runway, where wholesalers, boutiques, anyone really wanting to move stock could plug into our system, and then we would then market them around the world to different communities. And as that grew, we found that the business to consumer market was doing really well for us, but then we were also getting retailers that were saying, hey, you guys have a huge collection. We would love to tap into this as well. So we then became kind of the middleman for plugging all these boutiques into retailers all around the world. And I guess that's where the whole journey has kind of taken from there, is this whole focus of going for little boutiques, say in Bondi, to then be selling on retailers in France. So it's just the market has grown bigger and bigger and bigger, and now we can plug in wholesalers or distributors from anywhere in the world, and then they can be across. At the moment, we have 55 retailers worldwide. So that gives them a huge opportunity and growth span then to market their products.
That's fantastic. And was that an intentional move, or did you just kind of stumble into it as the market kind of presented itself?
The move was always to kind of build it out as a runway, which was our fashion marketplace, to have our own B2C market. As we started pushing it into other retail channels, the growth and the hunger came from there. And as we shifted the focus, we just kind of diverted our attention to be more away from kind of the Farfetch model, which was the Azura Runway, to more the model around the B2B, which, to our knowledge, there's no one else doing what we do anywhere in the world. So we've had a huge spike in obviously sales and growth, because there's no one else doing it. So it's a huge opportunity where we can just put any brand or any designer or boutique in front of the hands of anyone in the world.
That's great. And so how close is it to the Uber model or the Airbnb model, where it's the mass connection? Is that what you're striving for?
Exactly. And I guess that is the end goal, is to be the first thing was to be a fashion destination for people to kind of come in and buy fashion. But now the vision behind it is for Azura to be the gateway to the world of fashion. So nice. You plug into us, and then you have a sales channel on steroids, basically, that is selling everywhere in the world.
Yeah, lovely. And how are your customers finding it? Are they getting some really good traction through the channel?
Yeah, I said from both sides. So we've had suppliers that come to us and say, "Hey, COVID hit us hard, and we had $200,000 worth of stock that we had financed sitting on our back room floor."
Mm,
They plug into us, and all of a sudden that stock goes in 30 days because they're
fantastic.
sitting through. Obviously, they can market their own website, which they might get a couple of thousand people a day to their site. Where with us, because we're on so many different marketplaces and retail channels, in total, we're looking at about 120 million eyeballs looking at products. So it's
Well
just a
done.
numbers, really. You can kind of see it from that angle. And then on the retailer's perspective, when a company comes to them and says, "Hey, we have 150,000 products, we have 3,000 brands, anywhere from Chanel down to Calvin Klein. Would you like to work with us?" The answer is kind of always yes. So
Yeah,
it's kind of we're kind of a good thing to both.
well done. Yeah, that's excellent. And so from where you got started, actually, tell me a bit about that. How did you get started? What was the catalyst for that? Was it just one day you kind of woke up and went, right, let's do this, or were there a few things that aligned? How did you kick off?
Yeah, so myself and my business partner, we started an agency 5 years ago where we were selling Australian products to China
Mm,
and doing trade and looking at different angles of how we could move stock, really.
mm.
Anywhere from baby formula to coal. It was kind of quite a big breadth of different products.
Wow, yeah.
Nothing, yeah, nothing really got that much traction,
Okay.
just because the Chinese market's quite hard to break into. But we then came across a supplier in Sweden and in Italy that had the stock, and they had all these products of brands such as Dolce and Gabbana, Gucci, that we would dream of to kind of get hands on. And they had no real channel to, as I said, to get it out to the consumers besides just doing
Mm,
huge stock lots to companies like David Jones and Myer, where we designed some program where we could go kind of like a drop shipping arrangement where
mm.
we would send to the consumers, and then it kind of grew from there, and then the opportunity just kept growing. At the time, 5 years ago, fashion market was just growing worldwide, and then obviously pushing out to the e-commerce space, it just grew bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, fantastic. That's good. And so it seems like a fairly smooth ride as you kind of talk about it like that. What are some of the challenges that you've had, or what's your biggest challenge?
Yeah, it's been anything but, to be honest.
Yeah,
It,
okay.
I guess with any business, there's always going to be little hiccups here and there, and obviously the main one obviously is COVID.
Yeah.
Being or most of our warehouses being in Italy, Italy obviously got hit the hardest when
Yeah.
COVID first started, so we had to deal with warehouse closures. We dealt with freight and shipping carriers getting stuck at customs, so people were ordering their products,
Mm,
and we have kind of a kind of mantra of you get your product within 3 to 5 days anywhere in the world to anywhere in the world,
mm.
where that was obviously put in jeopardy when COVID happened because of
Wow.
different processes there. And then as we expanded the company into different markets, it's handling the tax laws and obviously logistics around that. And then at 1st of July this year, actually, the EU changed their policy with who the end customer pays tax, and the importer, and then Brexit. There was a lot of little challenges around that, but the biggest one of all has been the return policy. Obviously, with fashion, it's a highly returned item,
Mm.
and suppliers have one return policy, but then the retailers would have another one, which usually doubles what the supplier would be allowed to accept. So we ended up going from a zero inventory model to all of a sudden handling all these returns. And returns really are just dead money sitting on your balance sheet. So we had to kind of evolve with that, which led to kind of opening our logistics operation, which we now have warehouses in Poland, Netherlands, the US, the UK, and Australia. So now when a product is sold, it then gets resent back. We're returned. It gets resent back to our warehouse. It goes through a quality assurance check. It gets repackaged, relisted, and then resent out. So we're selling the returns again in quite fast movement. So
Smart.
returns definitely were our biggest kind of Achilles heel, I guess, for the business, which we have now overcome, and now is kind of an integral part of the business.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of teething and a lot of different growing pains, but that definitely was the biggest one that caused some damage.
Yeah, I like that. And how did you overcome that initial shock of the COVID shutdowns and Italy being hit hard and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so when COVID first happened, obviously our luxury fashion was kind of shut out of Australia to some degree, and that was big. We had a lot of relationship calls with our retailers that we would have to go out to and speak to about damage control. How we kind of solved that was more so around we had this huge sales channel already opened up, but we couldn't sell products to it. So we came up with the idea of why don't we start our own label? So we created Azura Exchange, which was affordable fashion. So not quite fast fashion and not luxury fashion, and more affordable clothing. And in the first month, I think we did close to 350K worth of sales with zero marketing, just because
Fantastic.
we had a sales channel already there. So it was just pushing products with zero brand recognition into a sales channel, and it's kind of just taken off from there. And that kind of led us to building out Azura Fit, which is now our active wear line, as well as Azura Chic, which is more our fast fashion line now. So we kind of pivoted at the right time. Would love to say it was strategic, but it was more so luck around the timing we did it. But yeah, it was a good change for us, and it's now diversified our business from we've got a luxury arm, we've got an affordable arm, and we also have an activewear arm now. So the business is kind of growing in different kind of approaches, but also hitting now the market on every single level.
Yeah, fantastic. Now that's really good. It sounds like you've gone a bit deeper as well, like across a variety of channels, which is nice. Like that's really good. So, all right, question for you: what are some secrets that you could share that have given you that biggest boost of growth for your business? Have there been a few key decisions, or have you made some moves at the right time, or have you just seen an opportunity? What's given you the ability to grow, or something that's not necessarily obvious just looking at Azura at the moment? It's like, oh, okay, well, can you pull back the curtains a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. There's probably three things. One of them is obviously the opportunities, or is really taking opportunity when it comes. We kind of gambled heavily in the beginning by backing ourselves by entering long kind of financial contracts with different suppliers and different software providers, where if we didn't make it, they could have sent us under. But obviously, luckily, everything came to fruition. So it was really taking that gamble on backing yourself and kind of getting there.
Fun.
Number two thing was really the people around us, really. So it's bringing in the right people. Like, I know, for instance, my skill set was one thing. My partner's Tim's was one thing, but we couldn't do everything. So we needed to bring in other staff and other people to kind of look at things that we weren't seeing. And the returns piece was around that as well. We brought in someone that came on board that kind of lifted the curtain on that, and we wouldn't have seen it otherwise until it was too late, really. So that was a big part of it. And I say that to all my friends and people I speak to is don't try and do everything yourself. It's always a good business is having good people in the business. That was one thing for us. And then the third one was the pivoting from having that stigma of we're a luxury fashion company to saying, all right, the market's changing. Let's pivot and let's go towards this affordable fashion as well. And that was crucial.
I like that. Yeah, well done. And where have you had the most fun in doing all of this? What's been the most exciting part of the ride?
The exciting part of the ride is really, for me, of being a sales guy, it's the networking and speaking to people. Like I'm speaking to people in the east coast of the US in the morning, and people in France and at night, and then it's kind of speaking to different people around the world, but also having stories like I told you before about saying to someone we've just helped them out of a financial burden and move their stock is quite rewarding as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good. And Sam, if you could go back 5 years and give yourself some advice, what would you say to yourself if you were 5 years younger?
I'll definitely go back and say you can't do everything yourself. I think in the beginning we tried to run this business with the two of us, and I think we learned very quickly that it was bigger than the two of us in a job. But really around just going with it. I guess there's a lot of different businesses come and go, and usually where businesses fall over is by not by backing themselves and not taking the risks. Like our business was very heavily on cash flow. Obviously, we were buying products up front and then selling them to suppliers that would pay us 60 to 90 days. So as a growing business, we weren't backed by anyone, so we kind of had to fund the whole thing ourselves. So we relied heavily on banks. We relied heavily on debt financing, and sometimes that looked quite scary because the numbers were getting up into the millions. So obviously, it is a very daunting thing, and I guess you kind of think at the end of it, if this all falls over, it's going to pull me down with it. But I guess the one thing is by backing yourself, you kind of come through at the other end and you go through all the adversity, and it's definitely one thing that is to kind of battle the storm, really.
And how did you deal with the stress of that? Because I know from my own experience, especially in the early days, I've had certainly some sleepless nights around, is this going to work or not? How did you cope with the stress of that?
Yeah, I think my wine subscription has definitely gone up. But yeah, to make it, I guess, more challenging and more rewarding as well. As I started the business, I had a little girl who's now 2, and then halfway through COVID, my wife fell pregnant again with twin boys.
Wow! Congratulations.
So I have 3 children under 3, and locked down at home and running a business as well. So I guess the challenges, when you hear it from the outside, they're all there, but I guess it's what drives you as well. Having your children come into it, that's what kind of kept me going. This is no longer about myself. It's now about obviously legacy and your children and everything else. And I guess anyone in that kind of position, you can you pull when you're stressed from work, you pull strengths from other places.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's really good, and that kind of leads me into my next question. What makes you feel inspired or like your best self? Is it family?
Yeah, definitely. Family for me is family first, and that's probably the biggest thing for me is why I get up every morning is to drive that.
Yeah, I love it. No, that's good. Yeah, family is definitely very close to my heart as well. So yeah, no, that's good. I can definitely relate that family, and I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, family is a big driver. And I think that's a really positive thing too. But that's great. So Sam, can you run me through who you can best help, and if we want to get in touch, how can we reach out to you?
The best help I would say would be boutiques or even designers or people that have stock that they're wanting to reach out to millions of people around the world. It's consider us as kind of a sales channel that you plug into Azura, and then you're in front of millions of people without the cost of marketing. There's no performance-based kind of metrics. We buy at wholesale and we sell at retail, and that's kind of as easy as it is. So it's a great model for a lot of brands, and I guess if I was a new brand starting up, it would be kind of the one thing that you'd be kind of pushing towards is, rather than spending thousands of dollars on influencer marketing and everything else, let's just try and push the products through a sales channel that's around the world and see what country or what market or what demographic has an interest in the products to start with. And it's a good way of doing market tests and also to getting the products out there.
Yeah, that's great. It's really high value system. And what's the best website that we could go to connect?
It's azurafashiongroup.com. That's our parent company, and that's where you can go to and connect with us there, and we can reach out from there.
Wonderful. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and yeah, I'm looking forward to watching you succeed even further.
Thank you very much. Thank you.